Russia, a land steeped in violence and interned in constant quarrels, will soon be tested, beaten, and broken, only to form from the ashes an empire the likes of which has never been seen. Russia, during the early 1900s, was fraught with frugal spending and corruption. Russian nobility and aristocrats lived in splendor, while peasants subsisted off what little they could find. During the midst of the First World War, revolution was about to find its way to the Russian homeland. Vladimir Lenin, communist revolutionary, has been smuggled back into Russia to begin the Bolshevik rebellion.
Lenin was very powerful, strong leader of Russia. He had pristine bald head and was responsible for the Great October Uprising that brought Russia into glorious communism. I mean, very smart man. Yes.
The peasants attempt to rebel against the Tsar due to the food shortages, but they are quickly oppressed. November the 7th, 1917, Lenin's Bolshevik forces began occupying government buildings, including the Winter Palace, the seat of the Russian Provisional Government. Lenin signs a treaty with German officials to properly exit World War I and to provide more attention to the war back home. Lenin appoints Leon Trotsky as his war commissar, and the Russian Civil War begins. At the Battle of Yekaterinodar, the Red and White armies clash with bloody results. The White Army's commander is killed, resulting in a Red victory and a retreat of the White Army. Lenin and other Bolshevik leaders meet to ratify a constitution for their newly founded country.
Look, I know I sound crazy, but Stalin and Trotsky were definitely something more than just human. I'm not saying aliens. For certain. They could be reptiles too.
Vladimir Lenin has the Tsar and his family executed.
At the Battle of Kazan, the Red Army storms the Whites' position, routing their army and forcing them to retreat. The White Army makes a desperate stand against the Red Army at the Battle of Sevastopol. The Allies attempted to support the White Army, but many got stuck in northern Russia and eventually had to retreat. In order to better defend Ukraine, the Red Army signed an agreement with the anarchist Black Army that would benefit them both and help them defeat the White Army. The White Army makes a desperate last stand at Petrograd. However, the battle fails, and the White Army surrenders to the Reds.
Obviously, slavery in the Civil War was a very major part, but there's a common misconception. Everyone's like, oh, them Southern Confederates, they're a bunch of racists, but that's not true. The Norths, they didn't like China.
Lenin decided to implement a policy allowing peasants to exchange extra grain for money in hopes of boosting the Russian economy before fully implementing communism. After the decline in health and inevitable death of Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin sprung a plot to take power, exiling Trotsky and becoming Russia's leader.
The reign of Stalin was one racked with great fear and paranoia. Many people were executed by the Soviet secret police, and even more were exported to Soviet work camps in Siberia.
Stalin, fearing the onset of war, signed a non-aggression pact with the Germans, hoping to draw attention away from Russia so he could reap the spoils of war after it was over. Figuring Trotsky opposing him, Stalin has Trotsky executed in his hiding place in Mexico.
During the Second World War, Russia was under heavy diplomatic tensions. Joseph Stalin signed a non-aggression pact with the Germans, hoping to take power in Europe. Elsewhere in Russian politics, Leon Trotsky, professional communist, was pickaxed to death in Mexico. Coincidence? I think not!
As the war raged on, the Germans were starved for resources and decided to invade Russia, disregarding the previously signed non-aggression pact. At first, the Germans are met with little resistance in Russia.
Hitler and his boy band, the SS, had recently launched an invasion into Russia to take their sweet Russian oil. However, Joseph Stalin, realizing that he was in danger, and being the master tactician he was, decided it was time to destroy the food and shelter the Germans desperately needed. However, he did overlook one minor detail, the fact that his people needed food and shelter too.
In order to stop the Nazis from advancing into Russia, Stalin implements a scorched earth policy to prevent the Nazis from taking precious resources like food or shelter. The Germans continued to march towards the Caucasus, unopposed. In order to stop the Germans from advancing further into Russia, Stalin mounts a final defense at Stalingrad, forcing his soldiers to fight the enemy to the last man to protect his pride and the oil of the Caucasus.
Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt meet up at Tehran to discuss the new sensation sweeping the nation, the SS. They notice if they don't do something soon, they're gonna be beamed. And so the Russians push the Germans back with the help of Allied forces, and they also recapture Berlin.
День Победы, как он был от нас далек, как в костре потушен таял уголек. Были версты, обгорелые.
After being entrenched all winter in Russia, and after a disastrous defeat at Stalingrad, the German army is forced to retreat back towards Berlin, with the Russians viciously trailing them. After relentless pushing on the Germans on both the eastern and western fronts, the Germans finally found their grave in Berlin. The Russians were first to liberate Germany, with the other Allied forces soon moving in.
Look, I don't think Stalin ever really died. I mean, I can't say for certain, but he definitely fell through the March 5th Stargate. I mean, just look at the shape of the Kremlin. Definitely. I mean, if you're gonna go through a Stargate, you need to eat plenty of your resistant Stargate fuel.
The years after Stalin's death were ones of great turmoil. Oh, got you! Was me Vladimir old time?
Get him off track right
now! Got you!
Obviously, slavery. Bad. But without it, we wouldn't have nice little cotton tees like this. And it's real soft. Dickies is not a sponsor.
Sir, this is about World War II, not the Civil War.
World War who?
This is about World War II.
Never heard of it.
After going through all that, Russia must be due for some good luck.
Tell me, the submarine?
There has been a nuclear accident in the Soviet Union, and the Soviets have admitted that it happened. The Soviet version is this. One of the atomic reactors at the Chernobyl atomic power plant in the city of Kiev was damaged, and there is speculation in Moscow that people were injured and may have died.
Look, I'm not saying my kids were stolen by aliens, but I am saying if my wife Helen divorced me, I want my kids back, Helen! I want my kids! Are you listening to me, Helen?